Okay, the Senate last week approved about a $16 billion and €1 billion loans request by President Muhammadu Buhari. What is the implication of this for the new development plan, and what does this mean for Nigeria's debt profile? Mustafa Wahab, analyst with Chapel Hill Durham, joins us now. Good morning, Mr. Wahab. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much, Chimeze. Always, great to be with you.
Always happy to have you. Well, Nigeria's 5-year economic plan has been disclosed by the government. What hit you right in the face? Was the government now plans to raise about $16 billion and, of course, 1 billion euros. Does this come as a surprise to you?
Not necessarily. I'm not necessarily surprised, to be honest, right? Chimeze, we all crave for massive, economic growth in the country, massive infrastructure development, talk about education, talk about health, this sort of, development that we crave in Nigeria, they are things that, require massive amount of money, for this investment to be put in place, hence the reason why, it becomes imperative for the government to sort of, fund this massive development, with borrowings, right? Given the fact that, revenue-wise, we're still, lagging behind. I've said it many times that, compared to, the size of Nigeria's economy, I think what we generate in revenue is still not, sufficient enough to take us, to the dreamland. I checked recently, South African government was able to generate over $84 billion, in tax revenues in 2020. That compares to, the overall federally collected revenue in Nigeria of roughly less than, $13, billion dollars, which obviously shows that, we still have a long way to go as far as revenue is concerned, right? But for us to get to that, huge economic development landmark, it then becomes imperative for us to sort of start borrowing to take us to the dreamland, right? Again, I believe that many Nigerians, many experts, and market participants with it now generally agree that borrowing is not really a problem, right? As long as you are using the cash from the borrowing judiciously. Again, if you compare, if you look at going by history in Nigeria, history of borrowings in Nigeria, where we've not seen, tangible economic impact for the huge amount of borrowings that we've done in the last couple of years, it just sort of begs the question of why, any Nigerian will be happy with what is currently happening as far as borrowing is concerned. But theoretically, it's not really a big deal that a country would embark, on massive borrowing, as long as most of those borrowing would pay itself via infrastructure investments.
Of the debts we received, we particularly noticed how the federal government seems to favor borrowing from China. For instance, $5.1 billion will come from China Exim Bank, $3.9 billion from the Industrial Commerce Bank of China, and $2.8 billion from China Development Bank. Should we be worried?
Absolutely. We all should be worried, Chimeze. If you check the current debt profile for Nigeria, what you see is that at least 10% of our borrowing is clearly from China, whether via the Exim Bank or China Development Bank, right? We are already largely exposed, to the Chinese government, and I suspect that this is not really a problem of Nigeria alone. I think across, low-income generating or low-income countries of the world, you've seen that we're now a lot more countries are now becoming a lot more exposed, to Chinese borrowing, right? I think I saw a report recently that close to $400 billion is now being owned to China across emerging and frontier markets of the world. Hence, a lot of analysts over the world are now, becoming a lot more concerned regarding these rising loans, and especially, this exposure to China. I think these massive loans that a lot of countries are now being exposed to China would more or less make it easier, for the Chinese government to sort of start seizing assets in the event of, anyone not being able to pay back their loan, right? I don't know why. I don't know why FGN is favoring, loan from China. I suspect that it's more or less because of the fact that, they are more or less trying to lean towards, concessionary borrowing, rather than commercially priced, Eurobond, where, obviously the service cost will be a lot higher compared to what they will get for development banks, right? I suspect that's the reason why they are leaning towards, more loans from China because of, implication on costs, right? But again, we are now becoming a lot more exposed. Currently, we are 10%, of our total foreign loan to China. Again, if we add this 16 billion, to what we currently have, that would probably take us to anywhere between 15 to 20%, which it should be worrisome for any meaningful Nigerian.
So how sustainable do you think our debt profile is right now?
So, I mean, we've seen the Q2 number as far as debt service cost is concerned, right? And what we saw was that debt to revenue ratio is now down to less than 50%, compared to 80% that we saw in Q1, right? And this is not to say that things are a lot better as far as, external debt or overall debt in Nigeria is concerned. I suspect this, significant reduction in debt to revenue ratio is basically because of, seasonality factor, right? So once we start to see, debt service costs, coming in, especially from the 4 billion euro bond that we just did, and obviously close to $3 billion from the IMF, SDR, right? I suspect that the debt to revenue ratio would probably go back up to the north of 70 to $80, percent levels, right? Again, I mean, we're still worried. Debt to service debt to revenue ratio is significantly high up there. At 70%, it means that for every 1 naira, Nigerian government generates at least 70% of that will go into debt service, which basically leaves, minimal room for us to, invest massively in the infrastructure that we so crave, right? Again, like I said earlier, the problem of Nigeria is not really debt service. I think the problem is really, revenue generation, right? If we can expand, tax base, devise other means of, generating revenue, I suspect the number, mathematical wise would gradually, come in, by naturally.
Right. Now, from investment perspective, what are your key takeaways from the new development plan of the federal government?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the plan is amazing, right? It's a fantastic plan, and I think going by history, we've had series of amazing plans in Nigeria. Think about Vision 2020, think about ERGP that is going to be ending this year, right? I think I mean I listened to the good part of what Dr. Yusuf was discussing, and one of the key things that hits me right in the face was when he was discussing how unsustainable inconsistent Nigeria's development plan has been over the last few years. I mean, this is a fantastic plan. I mean, so far what we've seen, right? Again, in the next 2 years, Buhari's administration will come to an end. A new government will probably come in and start up their own plan, which obviously would be pointing towards exactly what Dr. Yusuf was worried about, right? I mean, we are sitting on the private sector part of the discussion, and one of the key things I've seen, I mean, throughout my experience, is that when foreign guys are coming down to Nigeria, one of the first key things that they ask us is show us the developmental plan. So based on that, they can form their long-term investment objective, right? But the key problem is that they've not been able to do so in the last couple of years because, again, when you push out plans, fantastic plans, first of all, implementation would be a problem, and second of all, if another administration come on board, they more or less relegate those plans and bring their own, right? But in defense of the Buhari's administration, one of the key things I see from this new developmental plan is that it's actually feeding off from the ERGP that's going to be ending in 2021. that's again basically address the issue of consistency as far as policy wise is concerned. But generally, I mean, it's a fantastic plan. It's a plan that is going to be driven by the private sector. Obviously, we know that private sector has a lot of roles to play as far as Nigeria's economic development is concerned, right? I mean, I think one of the key numbers that we know right now is that for us to get to the dreamland as far as infrastructure investment is concerned, I think we need close to $3 trillion, for infrastructure development. I think agency of the government have actually quoted this number in the last couple of years. Again, $3 trillion is a huge amount of money that obviously the government alone cannot fund. Hence the reason why it becomes imperative, for them to start partnering with the private sector for us to get, to the dreamland as far as economic development is concerned. But generally, it's a fantastic plan. I mean, we like the content, and obviously would be looking forward to seeing how implementation is going to be running over the next couple of years.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mustapha Wahab, for your time this morning. We do appreciate it.
You're welcome, ma'am.